I'd like to talk about Slovenia, which is an almost landlocked country in Europe that I've always wanted to visit. It's hard to pinpoint exactly where it is because, well, these things are very subjective, but I would say it's in southern Central Europe and close to the Balkans. So that means it's to the east of Italy, but north of Croatia. I think it has a tiny sliver of coast on the Adriatic, but I am terrible with place names, so I don't know if I've got the name of the sea right. While I don't think it's had the same global impact as a large country like Russia or the USA, I think it can still lay claim to some pretty notable things, like being the homeland of Donald Trump's wife, Melania, and Slavoj Žižek, who's this rather notorious philosopher. And not only does it have all these famous people, but it also played a key role in history of the region by being the first state to secede from Yugoslavia, in at least what I think was a relatively peaceful transition. And while all countries have beautiful landscapes, Slovenian ones have a reputation for being particularly beautiful. Even the coastline, which is absolutely tiny compared to the nearby countries, like the Croatian or Italian coasts, in terms of what it's possible for people to do there. I mean, since it's a fairly modern country in the European Union, the sky is pretty much the limit, and you can do all kinds of things. But I think the most noteworthy things are enjoying the scenery, architecture, and culture, which are all rather unique in my opinion. For example, there's this seaside town called Pirin that I've been longing to visit for a while now, and it has this amazing town square that doesn't seem to have changed much since the Middle Ages, and that's got very well-preserved churches and city walls. That's just part of the reason I'd like to go there. I've also gotten to know a few Slovenians in my time, and while they're obviously all individuals, they always seemed like some of the most brilliant people I'd ever met, and I'd like to see if that's true for the whole country. There's a little bit of kinship there too, since I'm also from a small European country, and I think it's important that we celebrate and appreciate such places to keep them alive and thriving. If I haven't visited before I'm much older, I think I'll have really missed out since I've been meaning to go for ages and I don't want to lack the energy for such an experience.
What's the importance of the travel and tourism industry?
Oh, wow. I mean, that's highly dependent on the country, I suppose. If your economy is largely service-based and focused on selling the history and culture of where you live, then it will be vital to have a well-developed tourist sector. It's not only about money, though. Tourism could also be crucial for preserving and exporting your culture, since the more people you get to see it, the more aware people are or people become of it, and so they might be more likely to take an interest.
What do you think is the function of tourist guides?
Well, literally to guide tourists, but to be less pedantic about it, they should ideally channel the culture and refine the experience for guests in a country to make things more comprehensible and highlight features they've never considered. For example, in my country, there are many obscure cultural practices and places that only someone with in-depth knowledge of those places might know about and be able to bring to light.
Is reading a good way to get to know other countries?
Well, it's a good start at least, but it's not the be-all and end-all. You can learn facts, understand stories and national myths, and of course look at the pictures of the places there. But it's important to remember these are real living places, and almost nothing holds a candle to standing in the place and experiencing the atmosphere for yourself if you can. I think that adds a whole other layer of reality on top of all those supporting aspects that you get from reading.
How do people get information about other countries?
Well, we already talked about reading, but there's also talking and listening to consider. Being able to get knowledge of a place from people who have been there or who live there can make the information more tangible. Plus, you can ask people questions. You can't really do that with a book, although maybe in the age of AI that will change as the potential for interactivity grows.
How does traveling abroad affect young people?
Well, I mean, The romantic ideal is that it gives them perspective on how other people live and other ways of living. But obviously, not all young people are in possession of the ability or desire to do that. It could at least give them some experience of independence and planning their lives, though, which could be useful for the future.
What do you think of national identity?
Well, that's kind of a double-edged sword, really, since on the one hand, it can be used to generate national cohesion through a common set of values and ideals, but on the other hand, it creates this in-group and then by default, out-group concept, and that sort of thinking can lead you down a very dark path when it comes to deciding who the heroes and villains are in a national story.
Is it important to have a national identity?
Well, on a practical level, yes, because how are you supposed to travel without documentation that proves that you're someone coming from the outside into a country? So it works from that practical and, I suppose, administrative perspective as well.
And how can people develop national identity?
Oh, gosh. Well, the sky is pretty much the limit, isn't it? Because there's this idea of the national story or struggle where it struggles to emerge. So war tends to play a factor in this development of a national identity. And then once that's been established, it's consolidated further by the creation or highlighting of various figures and texts. So national poets are a big feature. National authors as well are also used in this manner. That's just a few examples, though, because, of course, all the people that live in a country contribute to the national identity in some way, even if it's just by living the values that have been dictated by the wider culture.